Good afternoon and welcome to the Leading for School Improvement Coffee Break. This coffee break is intended for current leaders in school and districts, as well as prospective leaders of schools and districts who endeavor to understand at a deeper level how to ensure that diverse learners, including English learners, can thrive academically and linguistically in the schoolhouse. In this particular coffee break, I'm going to pull back that curtain just a little bit more on how EL staffing works. In this particular session, which is part 2 of a series, I'm going to delve deeply into understanding FTEs, or full-time equivalent positions. Welcome to Staffing School. I'm glad you're here for the journey. Now I'm going to talk to you like a budget person. Let's talk budget. And one of the things budget people love to do is to use kind of like this technical language. FTEs, you've heard FTEs, full-time equivalent positions. And what I'd like to do here is to take a little bit of time to explain how we count or quantify an FTE to get a feel for how much support is represented in that full-time equivalent position. Let us begin on the professional side of the table, okay? Here I'm listing in descending order full-time equivalent positions. So the 1.0 is an example of someone who is full-time. That is most of you perhaps, when you're working, you're 80 hours a week within a 2-hour week period, you're working every single day, and that quantifies to 420 minutes of service per day. So once again, if you are a 1.0 teacher, we can say, all right, you have enough in your allocation to provide 420 minutes of instruction per day, not including the time that's allotted for lunch and planning, of course. If you are going down the line, let's go to a 0.9. Okay, you're not full-time. So if you're 0.9, and that can happen, then you're working 72 hours biweekly, and you have 9 days you're working within that 2-week period. Your minutes per day would equate to 378. The person who's 0.8, following the same logic, you can see you've got 64 hours over 2 weeks and 8 days within that 10-day window. And so from point A, maybe I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of every week with Fridays off. That's one way we can do it. There are other ways as well. But the idea is to understand that if I'm 0.8, I have 336 instructional minutes per day to give to students. When we begin to get into the lower numbers, this is when it begins to get really hard, because when we get to maybe 0.7 or 0.6, 0.5, you tend to be split between 2 schools. This happens in perhaps more lower incidence schools or low incidence districts where there may not be enough students to, fully allocate positions, or you end up splitting positions, or you end up with an allocation that's like 10.6. So you have the 10 that's full time, and then you're left with the 0.6. You have to quantify how to use it. So here's another little formula. If you're 0.6, that means it's 48 hours biweekly. And it also means that we are 6 days biweekly, and we are providing 252 minutes of instruction every day. That is what a 0.6 can do. I'm going to guess that many of you And again, if you're here because you are a high EL impact school or you have an interest in working with a high EL impact school, chances are you're in one building. But if you have a lower incident school, you're probably split. So if I am zero point 0.7, I might be, you know, zero point 0.7, excuse me, let me back up. If I'm 1.0, if I'm a full-time employee, but my allocation at school A is 0.7, and my allocation at school B is 0.3, 0.7, 0.3 makes me full-time, but I'm split between two schools. You have to understand how to quantify that split, okay? So in this example, I might be full-time, but I am 0.7 at school A, and this is how it plays out with the hours biweekly, the days biweekly, or the minutes per day, and then I'm 0.3 in my other school. If I am a full-timer that's split like that, there has to be conversations between the two principals and the teachers, like how that's going to work. But to have the conversations, you have to have in your mind how full-time equivalent positions can be quantified related to the amount of instructional time that that teacher has available to provide. Now, if we have supporting services staff, for example, a paraprofessional that helps, their FTEs can be quantified also as full-time and also in increments as you see here. The staffing in terms of hours is done on a daily basis. So again, if I am a paraeducator and I'm full-time, I am 8 hours in this building, this one building. I can be a full-time paraeducator though, and be assigned 0.5 in building A and 0.5 in building B, and that gives me 4 hours in each building. And again, you got to figure out, well, wow, where's my travel time? How does that work? There's a little negotiation there. You also want to make sure, you know, perhaps with our paras, I know for many schools, they are involved with planning with the grade level teams. And so there's an opportunity to think about how that planning may be impacted. But again, supporting services staff do not get planning per contract. You know, they do get a duty-free lunch. Everybody gets a duty-free lunch, but they don't have the planning time. Whereas your professional staff, your teaching staff do have planning factored in, as well as a duty-free lunch within the minutes per day. So again, this is a great chart to use as a starting point for understanding how full-time equivalent positions work, whether they're in the world of ESOL or they're, you know, a 5th grade teacher, 4th grade teacher, doesn't matter. The idea is these are the guidelines, if you will, for understanding FTEs that are in the professional realm and FTEs that are in the supporting staff realm.
And this concludes our LSI coffee break for today. Please feel free to keep in touch with us. You can find us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can also find me on the website, leadingforschoolimprovement.com. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for future coffee breaks.